Welcome to the Ottawa Business Journal's live broadcast of Decoding Development and Overview of Local Land Development. I'm Michael Kern from the Ottawa Business Journal. Thanks for joining us today. Look anywhere and you'll notice it's construction season. You'll see cranes dotting the landscape, construction crews busy at work. If you're commuting like me and stuck in that traffic, you appreciate what's going on in the city. But ever wonder what's involved in land development? Many business owners do get involved in land development because they're building an investment property. In some cases, they could be constructing a commercial facility that could be an office building, a warehouse, industrial facility. So here's the challenge. We see building happening all around us, but we don't necessarily understand the process. With the help of Nelligan Law today, we're decoding development with a specialist in municipal law and real estate. We hope to provide a high-level overview of the planning process in Ottawa and Eastern Ontario. Here are a few of the things we're going to cover today: determining geographic differences, understanding the stages involved in obtaining approvals, and how to navigate potential roadblocks. Let's meet our guest from Nelligan Law. She brings a sharp analytical approach to her files, shaped by her academic foundation in science. This allows her to quickly grasp the engineering technical issues that often arise in real estate litigation. Please welcome Elizabeth Bratton. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, Michael. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. This is a topic that OBJ reports on quite regularly. We have reporters that look through City Hall databases of development, but we kind of stay on that surface level, Elizabeth. And today we're looking to dig a little bit deeper, a little bit of an analogy there to construction. But before we start, Elizabeth, maybe you can tell us about your role at Nelligan Law.
Certainly. So I'm an associate lawyer and I'm practicing with the real estate group, and I have a specialty in litigation. And in real estate, I bring that specialty to the fore by handling municipal litigation, which means that if there is a denial or refusal of an application that you need help with getting moving again, I will be the person bringing it to the Ontario Land Tribunal and appealing it on your behalf to help your development continue progressing.
Got it. So you fit into the larger team at Nelligan, and you're specifically looking at litigation. And it's it's a bit unfortunate to say, but as we'll talk about over the next 20 minutes or so, often these land developments get into negotiations or conflict. So you're an important part of that team, Elizabeth. Before we kick things off, we're going to provide our viewers and listeners with a little bit of an overview of what's happening. As always, we've broken it down into three convenient topics. Topic number one, which we'll get to in just in a second, is location, location, location. That real estate saying that's so popular. Topic number two, think ahead, mapping out your development plan. And this will be a key one, Elizabeth, because you'll tell people how to potentially avoid some of those hiccups. And topic number three, we're going to talk about Bill 17, which is the Protect Ontario by Building Faster and Smarter Act 2025. It's super important to what's happening in Ottawa and Eastern Ontario right now. And sometime around 12:25 for our live audience, we'll get to questions, Elizabeth. So this is their opportunity to ask you some questions. So we're going to jump right in and start with topic number one, which of course was location, location, location. Tell us why this matters so much, Elizabeth.
Certainly. So, as the name municipal law implies, municipal law is highly region specific and location specific. Each municipality has their own official plan, and that can create some complexity because we have two types of municipal systems in Ontario. In major cities, such as the city of Ottawa, we have a single tier municipality. So that means that the city of Ottawa handles all local services, including planning, transportation, and infrastructure development. But once you're outside the city limits, the outside areas in Eastern Ontario will have two tiers of municipalities. And so that means you'll have the upper tier, which is the county level, and a lower tier, which is the township level. So within each county, you'll often have two or more townships. And in order to have a subdivision application approved, you will need to have approvals by both levels of municipalities. So there can certainly be an additional layer of complexity when you're developing outside of the City of Ottawa.
Yeah, it's a great point, and a good one to start the discussion. So, of course, Ottawa went through an amalgamation process around the turn of the millennium, and we got one tier. Before that, we had
Yes.
our cities and regional municipalities. Now it's one. If you go outside of Ottawa, and this is your point, there are two tiers, and having two tiers means more discussions, negotiations, complexity. Give us an example of a two tier of people, just to make it clear to people.
So, for instance, you'll have the town of Carleton Place is within the county of Lanark, or the town of Hawkesbury is within the United Counties of Prescott and Russell. And the way that this can create some complexity is each municipal government may have different focuses and different interests, both politically, and there may be different levels of community support for your project at various levels. And so this can certainly create some friction and delay, and in some cases, it can derail a project quite early on, and you'll need legal assistance in that case, again, to try and push the project forward when the two levels are not coming to the same place of understanding.
That might be a little common sense, but if I was in Hawkesbury, for example, I'd start off at the lower level, and then I would move up to the county level. So there's an order to this, or do you dual file? How does that work? A little bit deeper on that, Elizabeth.
Yes. So almost all of your applications are going to be to the lower level municipality because they are the one who are dealing with, for instance, zoning. They're dealing with their own local official plan, and site plan approvals are also dealt with primarily at the lower tier level. However, the lower tier needs to comply with the upper tiers plan as well. So there is a hierarchy to it, and the lower tier must have their policies in alignment with the upper tier. Occasionally, there can be some different interpretations there, but primarily most of your initial applications in a development will be at the lower tier level.
Got it. So I'm going to throw a scenario at you, and this might be right, and it's not. It might be wrong. So if it's wrong,
Sure.
so I'm going to go to my local councillor, and I'm going to potentially want to build a multi-res building, let's say 30 units on Main Street,
Mhm.
and he or she kind of supports it. I talk to the planning department. It goes through that process. I guess where the regional comes in is they might be concerned about like regional transportation roads. So it's that's effectively what we're talking about here, right? Something the multi-residential condo might fit into Main Street, but maybe there's not sufficient regional roads. Would that be kind of an example of something you might hit?
That could be an example. There's also different levels of roads. So some roads are maintained by the township level, the lower level, and some are maintained by the county level. And so you do also have to have sometimes agreements between the two levels on, for instance, the road quality that a developer needs to meet leading to the development. Um, but primarily when you're looking at applications to the upper tier, you've already passed through these first applications on the lower tier, and now you're looking at things such as if you need a plan of subdivision, that would likely be going to the upper tier.
That's excellent. Okay, well, thank you for help clarifying that. A reminder again for our viewers that you can ask your questions in advance. We'll be getting to those sometime around 12:25 if you're watching live. Elizabeth, why don't we make the transition to topic number two?
Certainly.
Like anything in business, having a plan and planning ahead makes a lot of sense, and that's what you're going to talk about. Think ahead, map out your development plan. Tell us more, Elizabeth.
Yes. So, in most cases, you must complete a pre-consultation with the municipality, but the quality of your pre-consultation and your level of preparedness can certainly impact both the relationship with the people you're dealing with at the municipality, as well as how quickly you can move through your planning stages and actually have shovels in ground. So an effective pre-consultation is very important. And to prepare for your pre-consultation, you'll need to come to the municipality prepared with a concept plan or preliminary site layout. You'll need to be able to sell the municipality on how your development is going to align with the local and provincial policies and how it will benefit the municipality. You may also have to do some preliminary research and have some preliminary reports to go into this meeting with, anticipating what issues are going to arise. So this may mean that you are hiring a team of engineers or planning experts already at the pre-consultation stage, and you may be bringing with you preliminary reports on, for instance, water management, soil quality, traffic management, um, things like this that the municipality will know immediately are going to be issues for the community. So it's certainly important to create your team early on in the consultation process, and it'll help because once you get to the planning meeting, the planning staff for the municipality, it may include professional planners, engineers, members from the Conservation Authority or Transportation, um, and they will review your package, and they may raise new issues that you had not accounted for. They may also have different suggestions on how to address the issues that you've flagged ahead of time to them. And this is where you're going to start seeing uh, lists of recommendations from the municipality in terms of what type of formal expert reports they need to see for your final application. They'll ask you for more specific um, uh, more specific information about your actual plan in terms of where things will be placed. And essentially, at the outcome of this pre-consultation, you'll have a list of everything that they know ahead of time that they're going to require in your final application, including what type of bylaw amendments you'll need, official plan amendments you'll need, and what type of information they'll need for the site plan approval.
Okay, very interesting. Let me again dig into this a little bit. So the pre-consultation, help our
Mhm.
viewers and listeners visualize this. Is this a booked meeting?
Yes.
So it is a booked meeting. I'm coming in and I'm meeting with counselors and planning officials. Am I bringing my engineers? Am I bringing my architect? Am I bringing my lawyer to the table? Help me understand that at a little bit of a deeper level. What does that meeting look like?
So the meeting will involve, you can bring your lawyer with you.
Okay.
It'll likely involve you bringing at least the preliminary reports and your concept for how you are going to address all the issues that you know ahead of time are going to become sticking points for the development. So yes, it is, you have to approach the municipality, schedule a meeting, and then you have to provide them with all of your materials for pre-consultation. And it really is a discussion between the two parties about what the vision is for this project and what needs to be completed in the application. And that's why it's so important to have a good team ahead of time, because if you file your application and there are things missing, or there are questions that are not answered that ought to have been answered, it will certainly delay your project, because then you're going to be sent back to the drawing board, asked for new sets of expert reports that you had not yet engaged. And if anybody watching has engaged the experts involved in development, it can certainly take months to go from retaining an expert to having a final report, because often you will need weeks to months to allow these experts to go out and gather the data. For instance, set up traffic cameras or do soil testing in terms of compaction and so forth. So it is very helpful to have a good plan and a good team already at the pre-consult stage, so you're not delaying your project down the road.
Yeah, completely get that. that you need to walk into that meeting really prepared. If you were to think of a common element of a plan that is sometimes missing or questioned in a pre-consultation, Elizabeth, would it be like a traffic survey, or would it be as you said, a soil or engineering report? Is there a common element that people often forget or don't emphasize enough in terms of its importance?
I would say the major issues that arise are issues with density, especially if you're within the city. So density in such a way that they're concerned about shadows on the neighborhood. They're concerned about the ability to manage traffic flow to and from this new development, especially, as I said, if you're building up in density. Parking management is also a concern that needs to be addressed often, and you may have subsequent traffic studies that are required later. But those are the main issues that we see being sent back.
Okay. So let's suppose I've had a great pre-consultation. I've got all these reports, engineering, soil, traffic. I've got a great architectural design. I go into my pre-consultation. They ask for a bunch of changes or they make some recommendations. I'm largely accepting of those. Maybe it's zoning, bylaw, site plan approvals, as you suggested. Um, so I think everything's lined up for a big approval, and then, I guess city council or planning committee rejects the project. Then I might end up in front of something called the Ontario Land Tribunal. Do you want to talk to us about some of those challenges? And that's
Yes,
a place where you kind of specialize, Elizabeth, too.
that's correct. So even when you have the best laid plans, it can come to a point where at the end of the day, you are given conditions for approval that are either unfeasible or you feel are impossible to complete. Or, for instance, the municipality simply does not respond to your application within the time frame, which in most cases is 120 days. At that point, you can file an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and that will permit the tribunal to decide instead of the municipality. So this is a very helpful tool that you can use in two ways that we see this. So the primary goal is if you want to have the tribunal review the denial or the lack of answer and decide on whether or not, for instance, the conditions are reasonable, the tribunal will do so. The second way that appealing to the tribunal can be helpful to a developer is it creates a sense of pressure and urgency in order to resolve any conflicts. So what we also see is sometimes where negotiations have stalled, the conversation has stopped. If we file an appeal, it brings the municipality back to the table and it can dislodge some of that delay. And sometimes we're able to negotiate and settle out the whole issue without actually needing to go to the full hearing at the tribunal.
Okay.
So there's two ways you can use it, and I've used both.
Okay, you've used both. And
Yes.
objection would be things like, I really need 30 units to make my multi-residential property in Carleton Place economically feasible, and they're saying it can be 20 units, and I disagree. We can't come to a resolution on this, so we end up at the Ontario Land Tribunal. Would that be a fair example?
Sure, that would be a fair example, and then the tribunal would need to assess whether or not your project aligns with the provincial policy, all of
Okay.
the laws and regulations, and they can make the decision whether or not your project meets the needs of the province and the population.
And just to restate this a little bit, so the role of the Ontario Land Tribunal is, one, potentially to bring the municipality back to the table if negotiations have fallen off, or to overrule a decision by a municipal council. Is that kind of the two ways it's used, Elizabeth?
Yes, from our side of the table, those are the two main uses. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I think everyone's getting a sense of why land development takes so much time and is complex in exploring that. Elizabeth, we're going to go to topic number 3 in just a second, but a reminder to our audience, you've got a unique opportunity to ask a question of Elizabeth. So get those questions there and we'll start pinpointing them. Okay, without further ado, Elizabeth, let's move to our third and final topic, which involves a particular piece of provincial legislation called Bill 17, Protect Ontario by Building Faster and Smarter Act 2025. Tell us about this piece of legislation.
Certainly. So we've seen the government prioritizing expediting development in several ways in the last couple years, and this new bill is just the latest effort by the government to move ahead on getting homes built. So previous to this, we saw some changes even at the Ontario Land Tribunal to try and reduce the time frame to get decisions from the tribunal, in that neighbors to a development are no longer able to appeal decisions regarding subdivision, um, consent to sever, or variances. So that occurred last year, and this year, this new bill provides additional methods for shortening the time frame, including reducing the municipality's ability to ask for additional studies and planning applications. And as we discussed earlier, being sent back for additional expert reports can create a huge amount of delay, months, half a year even, if the expert is in short supply or if there are seasonal considerations. Another way that this law is impacting municipal practice um, is that there's a focus on accelerating issuance for permits and streamlining zoning rules. And along with that, there's going to be automatic minor variance um, determinations. So you won't need to be constantly negotiating with municipality over what a minor variance should be. And the last point that I have there is it expands the minister's zoning orders, um, which we don't have a clear understanding of how much this will be used yet, but it means that the land tribunal may not be your only path forward. If you are stuck in your development, you may be able to appeal directly to the minister in some narrow circumstances.
Okay. Clearly, as you said, this is a really important change in Ontario. I heard the previous legislation was cutting down on what they sometimes called NIMBYism.
Mhm.
This one is more about accelerating the permits, because I think what we hear regularly, Elizabeth, is that the permitting process, I hear this all the time in Ottawa, is far, far too long. It can take months or a year or longer than a year
Mhm.
to get things approved. So this is a provincial tool to kind of break that logjam, if I can put it this way. Have you? It's probably too early. Have you experienced any changes? Has the real estate team at Nelligan Law experienced any changes in municipal approvals that can be directly attributed to this new provincial legislation, or is it too simple? Too soon? Excuse me, Elizabeth.
I would say it's too soon to be able to have seen direct changes related to this bill yet. But when we are at the Land Tribunal, one of the things that they are considering is the alignment of the project with provincial policies and the legislation. And so all of these bills are utilized when we are pleading in front of the tribunal to demonstrate that this is the government's intention and we should be approving these developments and moving things forward in alignment with what the government has deemed a priority.
Okay, that's great. And I would expect that these things have a way of working their way through the system. So we'll wait with bated breath, as they say, to see
Yes.
what type of impact it has. Elizabeth, we are perfectly on time for our Q&A session, so we're going to transition. Thank you for presenting those 3 topics. We're going to look for a few questions, and the The first one comes from Scott Burton. I'm going to throw it up on screen. Thank you, Scott, for asking the question. And listen, there's lots more people, so get involved in the interactive component here. Scott is asking, and we'll see if you've got an answer. We always appreciate, Elizabeth, when we're asking this. We're putting on the hot seat, so you may or may not have an answer. But what is the timeline for the Ontario Land Tribunal, the OLT, to schedule a hearing for a particular application and for the OLT to subsequently render its decision? So Scott, thank you for the question, is looking for timelines, both on a response or for some sort of decision.
So I would say once you file your appeal with the tribunal, you'll likely have first a teleconference where all the parties are brought together in front of an adjudicator. And that will likely occur within about 2 months of the appeal. That is not to say that anything substantive is being decided. It primarily is getting a lay of the issues and determining what the likelihood is of resolving the dispute within the parties without needing the tribunal to weigh in. And if it does need to go to a hearing, how long the hearing would be and what kind of expert testimony would be needed at the hearing. So once you've had that teleconference, if all the parties are very ready to get to a hearing, you will probably have a hearing set, I would say, about 4 to 6 months after that initial teleconference. Although what typically happens is after that first teleconference, you'll be asked to reappear after you've been given some more time and opportunity to work out the issues. It really depends on the interest of the parties in resolving it themselves versus going to a full hearing.
Okay, I'm going to ask you an impossible question,
Okay.
but it's based on your experience. If I were to end up, if I was a developer and I end up in one of these very sticky situations where we go to the Ontario Land Tribunal and I hire the great team at Nelligan to represent me, so I've got as strong of a chance of succeeding. Is it like I know you're guessing here, but maybe in your personal experience, Elizabeth, and understanding it's only your anecdotal experience, not like some statistical valid thing. What percentage chance do you have of winning? Is it like a 50-50 that I'm going to get the decision I want from the OLT, or is it a shot in the dark? Is it like a 1 in 10 chance? So, and if you can't give a exact percentage, maybe just provide me with a little bit of context on that.
Sure. I can't give an exact percentage,
Yes.
but I will say that we do see a very high level of success from the developer side once you're actually going through the full hearing at the tribunal,
Okay.
as often the projects that you're bringing to the tribunal do align with the province's policies. And as long as you can show that you have responded adequately to all the concerns and you have the correct expert reports, we often see a high level of success.
I get your point. So to summarize, if you do your homework, so to speak, you've done your reports, you understand what the local government wants and what the provincial priorities are,
Hmm.
then there's a good chance, if you're well represented and argue your case efficiently, that you could get a favorable decision. That's
Yes.
helpful to know for sure. Listen, while we were chatting, we did Susan behind the scenes here. One of our on the marketing team of OBJ did a little bit of a poll. I'll share some of the results. It's nothing earth-shattering, but it's interesting. We asked today's viewers whether they were familiar with the development process in Ottawa and Eastern Ontario. Most of them said somewhat familiar. A good number of people were not familiar at all. So I think we've done some good work here, Elizabeth. We also asked what part of land development do you find the most challenging? And they said it kind of split. It was planning approvals they found confusing, and also the appeals process that we were just talking about. So I think we've, again, made a little bit of progress on that. Elizabeth, if you were to, we'll move to our takeaways in here in a second, but just looking at a couple questions, let me just check on one other one here. Oh, yeah, just a second here. We got, yeah, here's a cost one. So, it's a valid one. We know that the cost of development, this is something we hear about, is concerning to people. And I know that this is once again, probably one of those impossible questions to answer. But the cost of completing the process with the city from beginning to end, I don't know if you could give us a range or if that's just so dependent on the type of project, Elizabeth, that you
Yeah.
can't really give an adequate answer.
Unfortunately, it is the second.
Yeah.
The range is so vast depending on
Yeah.
whether or not you're simply asking for approval to, add an extension on your house, or
Yes.
you want to create a, 3-tower development.
Yeah.
It really will vary based on the type of project.
Yeah. The complexity of the project drives
Yep.
probably the reports that are required, and also if you get into a conflict, the legal cost of supporting you. Listen, Elizabeth, we're at 12:30, so we're going to move to our key takeaways. So
Perfect.
let's start wrapping things up. Tell us what some of the practical takeaways for today's audience are.
So, in my view, the practical takeaways are you need to gather your team of experts, your legal team as well, early on in the project to ensure that when you are attending at your pre consultation, you are prepared and you're asking the right questions that are going to save you time and headache down the road. I will also say that development can be quite time consuming. And so you need to be prepared for several stages of applications and being sent back to do some revision after your interactions with the municipality. And that's very to be expected. And certainly, our team here at Nelligan, we have a vast experience of um, lawyers who can assist you with creating your applications for planning, as well as a team that's going to bring you to the Ontario Land Tribunal when things aren't going the way that you want them to.
Good points. And I think on that final one, what you're suggesting there is make a little bit of an investment with a law firm such as Nelligan to avoid those costly mistakes, right? It's almost like
Yes.
it reminds me, I don't know if this is the right comparison, of entering into a business with a shareholder agreement. Like, you need that proper legal advice before you to move into these processes that are quite complex. Elizabeth, as is always the case, we've only scratched the surface on this
Yes.
complexity. So we'll let people know how they can contact you. I'm sure people have some other questions. So here's your contact info on stage. All right, we get your phone number and your email address. By the way, for everyone who registered, this is one of the benefits of registering in advance for these webinars. We will be sending the replay link, the deck, and Elizabeth's contact information to you in the next few hours. So remember that when you're seeing some of these live broadcasts, please register it in advance to get the full benefits. Elizabeth, I want to thank you for joining us today. You did a great job. And I think, for those business owners, entrepreneurs out there who might be interested in an investment property or commercial property, building them, I think you've done a great job at giving them a sense of the roadmap, so to speak.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, appreciate. Thanks again, Elizabeth. That's Elizabeth Bratton from Nelligan Law. Big thanks to her and the team at Nelligan for helping us put together today's live broadcast. Couple of general points from OBJ. Reminder to visit our website. It's really the digital hub of everything we do at OBJ. That website is obj.ca. Very simple. It's updated 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day with unique exclusive web content. So content that is only on the website. I highly recommend you subscribe to our daily, weekday, I should say, email OBJ Today. That's Monday to Friday. I know you're thinking, I don't need another email. It really does help summarize the news, so you can just give it a quick scan and click on a headline if you want. We've got a great program for our most exclusive content. It's called OBJ Insider. If you're on the website, click on the Become an Insider. And for those of you on YouTube, please click the red subscribe button and the little bell icon. If you do both of those things, then you'll get a notification of when we're posting new video content on our YouTube channel. I want to thank Elizabeth Bratton again and her colleagues at Nelligan. Thanks for joining us today. Hope to see you real soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Cheers.